Hello everyone. We have a game with the white pieces against M. Bapinga, rated 1079. We play 1d4 and he goes 1f5. We have not faced this yet, the Dutch. I mean, I'm gonna go knight c3. Potentially we can still get some type of bishop f4 setup. He goes knight f6. This does stop us from playing e4. Therefore, we could go for our Jobava London setup. It's still weird because he can attack that bishop in a number of ways. But let's go for it. We'll just develop a piece. Only because this is the Jobava London speedrun. Otherwise, after f5, I would have probably just played c4. But now we'll start off with the setup and see what happens from here. It's going to be different no matter what because he played f5, which is not standard, so that's why playing setups against everything is not a good idea, but I'm still going to try it and see what he does. Okay, so he just develops the knight, which attacks the center. Whenever we can kick a knight, we consider it. So we push. He can't go forward in the center. He can go here and attack the pawn twice. It's defended twice. So I say let's kick it. He doesn't have a pawn presence that matters. He has an f pawn, which in this case doesn't stop me from playing d5. Whenever you can kick a knight, you consider the move, calculate the knight jumps, kind of good, kind of bad, go from there. In this case, since he can't go to these two squares, most likely kind of bad. So he goes knight a5. The knight is almost trapped. It does have the c4 square if we kick it. However, we can get rid of that square by controlling it with our bishop, potentially. So there's multiple moves here. For example, e4 tries to control this square fast so that you can play b4 before he even knows what's happening. So you go e4. Thing is, the pawn hangs, so if he takes it with the knight, you can't just rush with b4 because your knight hangs, so you have to take his knight. But then he's forced to take back. Then you hit him with b4, and his knight's stuck. If he takes with the pawn, that's a pawn sack. You still just hit him with b4, and he still loses the piece. So e4, if he doesn't want to lose the piece, he still can't move the piece right now. So if he plays something like b6 to make a square, I mean, then we can just push and kick his other knight around. His e-pawn's hanging. Oh no, he waited. I took so long to move that my opponent left the game. I hope he comes back. Well, while he's not here, I was also going to say that queen d3 hits this pawn and controls this square and prepares b4, so it was another tricky way to attack something while trapping the knight. So I go here. He almost certainly doesn't even know what I'm doing with the knight. And I think we got it. I think so. Although he can go e5, hitting our bishop. Then we have to move our bishop, but then we still have it. But if you en passant, you free his knight. So here, just pin the knight, and his knight's trapped. My opponent left the game again. Doesn't say where this guy's from. Does it say where I'm from? I hope he comes back, but now that he sees his knight's trapped, he probably won't. And this is the benefit of kicking a knight that's developed to its best square. It has to go to not its best square, right? By definition. And then it gets awkward. In this case, it's trapped. Even if it wasn't trapped, you know, how many squares is it effectively controlling? You know, it's not that many, so I'm not a fan of going bishop f4 in these lines, you know, when he hasn't played d5 yet, but this is one game where you see me do it out of all of my games. We're just going to claim victory and then go to the next game because there's not much to analyze. He just hung a knight. So let's go d4 again against Somith, rated 1125. Okay, this guy doesn't want to play. Okay, d5 on the board. We hit him with knight c3, threatening to play e4. He stops e4 by developing a knight towards the center. Now we play bishop f4 towards the center, and it makes some sense. We're ready to play e3, close the pawn chain. But black goes bishop f5, trying to develop towards the center before he closes his pawn chain. I mean, it kind of makes sense, but I feel like we can still do our thing. How does he stop us after knight b5? He has to go knight a6 probably. Let's throw it in. Improve a piece for free and really mess up his piece because it has to go to a6. Okay, he did not do that. Instead, he unnecessarily sacrifices a pawn by going e5. So we can take two different ways. Boom, bop. We're going to take with the pawn because it comes for free, hits the knight, gives us back the turn, and comes with threats. You may have seen this in one of our previous Jobava London games, but the threat is the connection between these two pawns. First of all, he moved. What's he threatening? Nothing. So it's our turn. We're going to take this pawn in the center with tactics. If he takes, we go boom with a triple fork, Beyblade. We get the queen back with the pawns from the center. And we're up 3 pawns, so you can't complain when you're up 3 pawns. The opening worked out well if you're up 3 pawns. By move 8, we would love to long castle, get the rook right there, beautiful. But he's currently congregating on the f2 square, trying to do what we did to him. We can easily stop this. First, we're going to do a move that controls the center, stops the coordination, and opens up a piece. We're also ready to kick the knight next, and it's actually trapped, I want to say, which is weird. But first, he attacks our knight. Let's address that issue. We could defend our knight with a pawn and create the super strong center if he takes. It does block the bishop, but I feel like we're up 3 pawns. We can get our bishop out so many ways. I'm going to go with the pawn and just cement this knight in here on this outpost. because it's really bad if he takes and gives us the pawn there, and if he's not going to take, then we just have a good knight. So I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to get this 3-on-2 pawn majority in motion. Okay, he does take, but now we have two really strong pawns here. This also stops his knight from its natural development. Again, we're ready to kick his knight, and it's trapped. He could counterattack our bishop. We get a knight, he gets a bishop, we get a pawn with the best center ever. We have a parallelogram pawn chain, which would be so cool. He moves his king, which was not a move I was looking at, so let's attack the knight and try to create this parallelogram if he finds g5. Okay, he does not. He gives me this check. I do have to move my king, but that's a good thing probably. But where? I guess I have to go here, and then his knight's no longer trapped. Because here, so here. So what is he gonna do? Go here now? That looks so awkward. So what's he threatening? This is just a trade, a piece I didn't move. I don't care about that. I mean, let's just ignore him. I kind of want to ignore him. I'm just going to ignore him and develop a piece, improve its power significantly, and deny his rook from the open file. And I'm threatening to invade, and these pawns created a blockade. So that's all good stuff. You see, and now we can hit the bishop, which defends the knight. He goes back, but can't we hit the bishop again? We could. We could also throw in this check. The good thing is it prevents his rook from taking the pawn in the future. The bad thing is it creates squares for his pieces to go to. So let's not throw that in. Let's just hit the bishop. He moves the knight and hits the rook. Okay. It's a try, I guess. But what happens now if I hit the knight again? Two things hanging. Look at the center. Okay, so he takes a pawn. We don't care about a pawn. Which piece do we want? Probably the bishop. I mean, it doesn't matter, you're up a piece and a bunch of pawns, but let's take the bishop, the better piece. I'm not, because this can't coordinate in a way that I care about, so. Okay, so he goes that way. It's probably even worse. If my king was on f2, that would be wonderful, because then my pieces could use that square. But we probably have some stuff here. We could pin the knight, which is super annoying, maybe forcing him to rook trade, or we could just try to develop. I guess we should try to develop. King f2 is the best developing move, and you're like, what? And it's because it opens this square, so it does the most for your development probably than any other move. And he can't stop us from putting pieces here. Checks don't matter, we can still put pieces there. So basically we just opened up our bishop by moving our king immediately, boom. We're completely winning. He gives us this check, but we would love to put a piece here anyway, so thank you. He's also walking into this x-ray, so when I play e4, it's going to be for free. So he plays with the knight. He can't actually jump anywhere, which is interesting. I might as well develop my knight instead of playing e4, which gives his knight a central square. Okay, now he goes here. This does attack the pawn twice. So in this case, I'm going to throw in e4 because he can't take with the rook, of course. He also can't stay here, meaning the pawn is safe. My bishop, if needed, can reroute here. So he moves his rook, which makes sense. Not threatening anything. I'm going to pin this knight and also contest his rook. Okay, he gives us this check, but remember how I moved the pawn? That's a free rook. And now he's down 9 points in material, same as a queen, and that is GG. What did he take? Okay, so he takes a pawn, threatens nothing, and we see that there's a king here, loose knight here, discovered check here. We put the pieces together. Discovered check wins the knight, unless he can attack your rook. If he attacks your rook, you still take the knight, but then he kicks your bishop, breaking the defense. Then you can figure something out. So he moves his king this way, which lets you take more stuff. Not a bad game from an 1130. Good try. He plays b6. This hits your bishop. So now we just immediately win the knight because we can pin it. Pins are very strong if you can apply more pressure to them. Pins are very strong if the thing you're pinning isn't protected by a pawn. Pins are strong if they help you control the right color squares. And pins are strong because you can release them when you want. So he goes rook d8, which threatens to a check. He proposes a take back. I let him do it. I mean, that's probably his most active move. Okay, he goes to protect the knight, but it doesn't matter because it's pinned, right? So you could have 10 rooks lined up on it, but if a pawn attacks it, you're going to lose the knight. So he goes here, which I guess he's just making random moves at this point. The knight is still pinned. You do not have to take it. So let's not take it. Let's improve a piece for free. The knight's not going anywhere. This comes with nice threats. Potentially, it comes with checkmate patterns. So he hits our bishop. We could take the pawn or go for checkmate patterns. Do we have the... I guess the king has the g6 square. We would need to take that away if we wanted checkmate. Oh wait, this would almost be checkmate, but there's g6. Okay, so for the time being, we'll just take this free thing. Yeah, this would be checkmate because the knight's pinned, and that's cool. Hope, yeah. Okay, so he moves over to this square to unpin the knight. So now that it's unpinned, we could take it. We could also take the rook. Let's take the rook. He has some weird check, but so what? And we will mate his king over here. We have 2 bishops, 2 rooks, these pawns. He should definitely resign and analyze the game. How many opponents, not opponents, how many players do you think analyze the games? You know, when they're 10 minutes or longer, let's say, like this. Not the 3-minute games, but the 10-minute games. How many people do you think go over them? And then how many people do you think get anything out of it? Not a lot. And my opponent left the game. I gave him a take back, and he has the audacity to leave the game. Coward. So let's claim victory. Analysis board. Okay. Develop a piece. Threaten e4 in the center. Develop a piece and center. And now here, you can make a standard move like e3, developing a piece. But he didn't play c6, he didn't play a6. He didn't play anything that stops us from going knight b5. And so he has to go knight a6 to protect this pawn. And then his knight's stuck there, but my knight's stuck here, and they're just stuck together, having fun on the side of the board. And that's how you have to play it. But he instead blundered a pawn, which is something you do in different lines when you don't have access to knight a6, but here he does. So we take free stuff, and it's plus 1.5. Almost, it's game over, right? He goes in the center, and boom, we hit him with this tactic, winning more central pawns. You cannot take. They always take for some reason, but you should just be like, okay, I lost some pawns. Let me just play a normal game. But they never do. They always take, and it leads to a much worse game because we take another pawn, so you lose even more material. Now you have no queens. Now you can't castle. It's just a way worse situation, and it goes from, plus 2 to plus 4.5, which is, for those of you who aren't good at math, more than double. So, big difference. And then we don't just long castle and walk into, him winning an exchange or a rook or whatever. We look at what the opponent does. We say, what's the threat? And we prophylax it. Center, development. Boom, he hits our knight. Center, no development. But we're also out of the opening. We're in the middle game, and we're up 3 pawns. So things are going to change too. Force move. And now force move. I mean, no, it's not a force move, but it's forcing, and it's center, and you want to get rid of his active piece on your side of the board. That is trapped. So it's plus 5.4. He tries to free it in this weird way, but I feel like it's still trapped, even though it looks like it's not. Because once I kick this bishop, if the bishop runs, you lose the knight. And if the knight takes the bishop, you're going to lose the piece, and then you're going to lose the knight still. So it's still trapped. So I just develop because his knight's still trapped as far as I'm concerned. I don't even rush with a3, which is kind of gangster. So now I do a3, going down this forced sequence of moves that lead to the losing of a piece. So he tries to evacuate with threats, but we just hunt him down with threats, counter threats. He has to lose something. We take free material, free stuff. Now, ideally, you just want to get your pieces out. King f2. I'm just curious to see if it's... You see, if you look at the top moves, you see how it has 2 arrows with the king? It's for a good reason. It's because moving the king is the best move as far as development is concerned. You see, they also recommend, let's say, the pawn. That's just a free move. You're going to kick the rook and then you'll move your king, something like that. This bishop check, it's just a free move, improving move. So they're saying, okay, do these free moves or do your development by moving the king. I did briefly mention this rook here when I was playing, saying you can limit the development of the knight, so that also increases your relative development. But in my head, I noticed he can bring his rook back and offer trades and stuff, and I don't want to deal with that. So king move makes a lot of sense. So we go king f2, plus 5. Excellent developing move. Force move. Development. I would normally go towards the center, but those squares are taken, so I don't have a choice. It's plus 6. We improve our position for free. and it defends the pawn, so it does a lot of things. And then you have options here. You can just bring the rook over and start trading stuff, but I knew once I pinned the knight, I would be forcing trades, and I was up 4 points of materials, so the less knights to have, the less tricks to have. So I pinned the knight. He throws me a check, which hangs the rook. Not much else to say. Improve for free. Free stuff. And then the rest is just, you can win this on your own. You don't need me to explain it. So hopefully these games help your thinking process. Hopefully they help you with ideas in the Jobava London. Submit one of your rapid games in my Discord so I can review it for you. Good luck in your chess. Goodbye.